In recent years, we have seen some weird contracts in football. Not only did we see a clause that prevented a player from going to space, we also saw one that prevented a player from biting somebody. I wonder who had that clause in his contract. And in light of the new deal that Vinicius Jr. signed with Real Madrid, more on that later, we are going to talk about the strangest contracts in world football. And obviously, my name is Nuri, I'm your host for today and welcome to HITC Football. I'm not gonna keep you guys waiting any longer, let's get right into the video. Let's start off with everybody's favorite Brazilian player. Obviously, I'm talking about Ronaldinho, the man that won the Ballon d'Or, that stole everybody's hearts and just had an unbelievable technique. Ronaldinho started off his career with Grêmio in Brazil before making the move to Europe by going to PSG. And this was still before it was actually cool to play for the club. But after making a name for himself there, Barcelona signed the player for almost 30 million pounds. And in Barcelona, Ronaldinho had 5 stunning years, and at one point he even got a standing ovation in Real Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu after an incredible performance. So you would think that every manager wanted to keep Ronaldinho. But in 2008, when Guardiola took over the managerial post in Barcelona, one of his first acts was getting rid of Ronaldinho as soon as possible. And this had absolutely nothing to do with his ability, because he was undoubtedly one of the best players in the Barcelona squad, but this had to do with something else. Because besides playing football, Ronaldinho absolutely loved going out clubbing. And as many of you guys already know, professional football and partying until late in the night don't really go hand in hand. And it was no secret that Ronaldinho absolutely loved partying. He was often seen in the city, and sometimes early in the morning Ronaldinho went straight to the club to train after just spending the entire night in the city without any sleep, where he spent his time in a different type of club. So that's why Guardiola sent Ronaldinho to AC Milan, but this weird contract clause was not in this contract, it was in the club that he signed after AC Milan. Because by the time he signed for Flamengo in 2011, the word was already out that Ronaldinho loved partying a little bit too much. So his new club Flamengo wanted to add a clause in his contract that would prevent him from going clubbing. But obviously, the big name and player that Ronaldinho was, they couldn't prevent him fully from going out. So they added a clause in his contract that only allowed him to go clubbing twice a week. And this one is funny for me because I think that any other player would be completely prevented from going out. But obviously, since it's Ronaldinho, twice per week is fine. And we're going from everybody's favorite Brazilian to a player that divides opinion. And I'm obviously talking about Neymar. Back in 2013, everybody was after the player, and that's why Neymar had a lot of leverage when negotiating his contract with Barcelona. And there was a lot of stuff wrong with this contract. Not only was the fee reported way lower than what Barcelona actually paid Santos for the player, his move to Barcelona was also under investigation for taking part in tax fraud. Something that Barcelona and their players are very familiar with. And in this contract, there were a lot of strange clauses. First of all, there was a clause in this contract that would allow Neymar to earn up to 2 million if he would not argue with the coach regarding his position on the pitch. And obviously, Neymar moved to Europe from Brazil at a very young age, so Barcelona wanted to prevent him from getting lonely. And Neymar had the perfect solution for that. Because in his contract, there was a clause that would allow his friends and family to visit every 2 months with all expenses paid in Barcelona. And this showed that Barcelona were willing to go above and beyond to get the Brazilian attacker. Moving on from 2 Brazilians to an English player, because this contract involves Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And as we all know, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain currently plays for Liverpool, but the clause we're going to talk about has nothing to do with this contract there, because the clause we're going to talk about right now was in his Arsenal contract. In 2011, Arsenal signed Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain from Southampton for a fee just shy of 30 million pounds. And Arsenal didn't want to pay any more for the player, but obviously Southampton, as the selling club, wanted more, so they found a perfect solution. They added a clause in this contract that would see Arsenal pay Southampton £10,000 every single time that Oxlade-Chamberlain played 20 minutes or more. And if you were wondering why Oxlade-Chamberlain made so many cameos after the 71st minute for Arsenal, this is your answer. And if you ask me, this is absolutely ridiculous. I think that any clause in the contract regarding play time or amount of games is absolutely stupid. And it's good that Arsene Wenger wanted to be economical, but I don't know if this clause really helped his team selection. And we're going from a player that's playing for Liverpool right now to a Liverpool legend. And by the way, this is also the 3rd player in this list that played for Barcelona, so apparently they have a thing for strange contract clauses. And we all know that Suarez can be a great finisher and a great striker, but we also know that he can be a little bit loco at times. Throughout his career, Suarez bit a person 3 times. And obviously we all know about Suarez off the pitch antics, but the thing that baffles me most is that he didn't do it once, he didn't do it twice, but he bit somebody 3 times. The first time it happened was over at Ajax, and I still remember watching him live and I couldn't believe that he did it. The second time was against Chelsea and the last time was at the World Cup against Italy. A great moment to bite somebody, by the way. The biggest sporting event in the world, everybody's watching and you want to bite somebody. Great choice. And just a quick question for you guys. Can you name all the 3 players that Suarez has bitten? This is such a strange question to ask. But anyways, drop a comment if you know all the 3 players that Suarez has bitten. Don't look it up. Try to see if you can remember all 3 players. And while you're at it, also like the video. And if you're not subscribed, do that as well. So yeah, because Suarez didn't really try his best to hide his biting habits, everybody in the entire world knew his antics. And when Barcelona wanted to sign the player, they needed an airtight plan in order to prevent this from happening again. So ex-Barcelona president Bartomeu made sure there was a no biting clause in the contract that Suarez signed. Unbelievable that a player actually needs a clause like that. Moving on to the guy that replaced Suarez at Liverpool. And this signing was literally asking for problems because Liverpool replaced Suarez with Mario Balotelli. And just like Suarez, Mario Balotelli can be absolutely unbelievable on the pitch, not so much in these last couple of seasons, but he can also be an absolute menace off the field. And with weird stories like throwing darts at youth players at Manchester City and almost burning down his house while lighting fireworks inside of it, Liverpool needed to take precautions. That's why Liverpool added a clause in his contract that would allow them to terminate his contract if he would step out of line. But this time, there were no problems with Balotelli off the field, but on the field it was a disaster. The player only scored 4 times in 28 games, which was not good enough for the fee that they paid for him. So although the clause in his contract actually worked, his time at Liverpool was not worth it. Moving on to another Liverpool player in Bobby Firmino, and this contract also has something to do with Suarez. Because the contract with Suarez that we just talked about in Barcelona almost wouldn't have happened, because in 2013 Suarez was very close to joining Arsenal. Because apparently there was a clause in his contract that would allow him to leave if a club paid £40 million for the player. And in order to trigger this release clause, Arsenal once made a bid of 40 million plus £1. And at the time Liverpool were absolutely disgusted with the offer, and famously at the time their owners posted this tweet. And apparently this made a lot of impact, because when Roberto Firmino signed with Liverpool there was a clause in his contract that would allow him to leave for £82.5 million, and it was clearly stated that he was allowed to leave for any club except for Arsenal. Going back a little bit in time, because we're going to talk about Stefan Schwarz's deal to go into space. And yes, I agree, this one is kind of strange. In 1999, just before signing with Sunderland, Stefan Schwarz's advisors booked him a seat on one of the first commercial flights going into space. And apparently this flight was supposed to happen in 2002, but at Sunderland they were not having it. Primarily due to insurance reasons, they wanted to prevent Schwarz from going into space at any cost. So that's why Sunderland managed to add a clause that would see his contract get ripped up if during his 4 times at the club he would go to space. And in hindsight, all of this trouble wasn't necessary, because now in 2022 there still hasn't been a commercial flight that went to space. So all of this trouble for absolutely nothing. And the last contract clause we're going to talk about is the £1 billion release clause. And back in 2017 there was nobody with a release clause of €1 billion. But after the Neymar transfer everything changed. In 2017 Neymar had a very high release clause of €222 million, which was more than double the highest fee that has ever been paid for a player at that time. But then there was PSG, and they made the unthinkable happen, because they paid the release clause for Neymar and they absolutely smashed the previous transfer record. So after this happened, clubs in Spain took a different approach when signing contracts. Because over in Spain there's a rule that you need to have a release clause in every single contract for every single player. And now players like Karim Benzema, Pedri, Araujo, Ansu Fati all have a €1 billion release clause. And the latest addition to this list is Vinicius Jr., because his new contract extension with Real Madrid also saw a €1 billion release clause added. So in order to prevent a club from buying a player that they don't want to sell, I think that this clause is pretty airtight. So anyways guys, that's the video done. What is the weirdest release clause or the weirdest contract in world football? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.